You're listening to the Business Building Rockstars Show, where your host, Nicole Holland, gets the lowdown from today's most talented, inspiring, and successful entrepreneurs on what it really takes to reach rockstar status.
Hey there, this is Nicole Holland, and today we are talking about the vitality of setting up processes in your business with Vinay Patankar. But before we get started, I want to know, did you catch episode 16 where Travis Ketchum and I talked about how to speak your audience's language and manage business communications effectively? If not, you can catch all of my past episodes either on iTunes, Stitcher, or by going to bbrshow.com. You can get all the show notes there and see all the past episodes. And I want to make sure that you know right now, this is our launch phase. So if you're loving the show, I would love for you to leave a rating and review on iTunes. And then once you do, go ahead and go over to bbrshow.com/launch. That's where you can input your name, your email address, and your iTunes ID. And as a way of thanking you for your support, I'm going to give you a complete Get Seen, Get Heard business building bundle, which will help you grow your reach through webinars, podcasting, photography, videos, and actually getting on television. Find out all the details at bbrshow.com/launch. Now, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about how systems and processes are important for scaling your business. We'll also look at the benefit of always testing things out. And Vinay also talks about what it's like to be a digital nomad. So without further ado, here we go.
Hello and welcome to the Business Building Rockstars Show. I am Nicole Holland here today with Vinay Patankar. He's the co-founder and CEO of ProcessTree, the simplest way to manage your team's recurring processes and workflows. Easily set up new clients, onboard employees, and manage content publishing with ProcessTree. ProcessTree is a venture-backed SaaS company and AngelPad alum with numerous Fortune 500 clients. And when not running ProcessTree, Vinay loves to travel and has spent 4 years as a digital nomad, roaming the globe, running different internet businesses. He enjoys food, fitness, and talking shop. And I am so excited to have Vinay with us here today. I first came across Vinay and ProcessTree a few weeks back, and I've been playing with it, and it is just one of the coolest, most useful tools I have found online for my business. So we're going to get into his story and what he's up to in just a minute. But before we do, Vinay, I've got a question. Are you ready to rock?
Hell yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. So yeah, tell me more about what you're up to now. What is ProcessTree and what do you do?
Yeah, well, you covered the kind of high-level summary there, but we're a SaaS platform, which means that we're a browser-based app that anybody can come and use on any computer or device, and we help companies manage their processes and workflows. And so what that means is, to kind of break it down simply, we help with 3 key areas of your business. So one will be with just your core process documentation. If you don't know, you should be writing down your processes. You should go and read a book like E-Myth or the Checklist Manifesto or even the 4-Hour Workweek to get an idea about why that's important for scaling. But just documenting and keeping a place for all those documents to be stored and accessible by your team from anywhere, controlling who can edit them and who can see different ones if you have sensitive information, that kind of stuff. So we handle that side. And then we kind of take it much deeper. And I guess one of the traditional problems with just simple kind of document management, which is how most companies have documented their processes since, before computers, right? It's just you write down how something gets done. That's how you do it. That's how all big companies or governments operate. Like, you can't get around it, right? But there's an innate issue with that. When something gets written down, it can easily get lost. It can get out of date very quickly. And also, there's no real way of tracking or collaborating or helping to execute that particular process. It's generally, okay, the process is written down here, and then you read it and you learn how to do it, and you go over somewhere else and then you actually do it, right? You kind of like have to do that extra step of work of learning and then taking it somewhere else and doing it. What we're trying to do is we're kind of consolidate all of that into one place. And so what we'll allow you to do is we'll allow you to take that process that you've written down and we'll allow you to actually execute it. So a great example for you would be like, say, podcast publishing. You might have a process for, say, every time we record an episode, we have to record it this way. We have to add this intro, this outro, this editing. We have to publish it here. We have to promote it there. And that could be something that you've had written down. But what ProcessTree will let you do is actually every time you have an episode, spin that up as an active process and then assign it to different people, track that they're getting done, collaborate around it, i.e. like if one of the steps is we need to edit this episode, you can drop in the MP3 file of the episode to be worked on in that particular episode. That gets connected to the process itself, and it gives you an audit trail. It gives a way to share that episode with other people in the team, and then it gives you kind of visibility and a dashboard across all the different processes that are being run. Like it just kind of turns that flat document into something that's really powerful and usable for a lot of different ways. So collaborating with your team and making sure that people know what stage of the process you might be at if multiple people work on it, having an audit trail and tracking, and making sure that things got done and having accountability for things like compliance and reporting there. And that's kind of like the next big thing we do. But then moving forward and the real vision of the company is to actually help you automate a lot of those tasks moving forward. So, for example, if one of your processes is set up a client once they purchase your service or product, instead of having to manually kind of go through and do email back and forth and go and tell somebody else in the room that the client signed up and give them the information and then make sure that the client received their package, we can kind of automate a lot of that flow using integrations with different apps and using automation features like reminders and schedules and triggers and things like that. So we actually just help you get it done easier.
It is so flipping cool. And I know I am not even using a fraction of the power of this thing. And what's crazy to me is that it is free for the end user, right?
We have a free plan. It's not free for everyone.
Yeah, but I mean, for somebody like me, a solopreneur, and I don't need the big business plan. It's your entry level is free, or is that
Absolutely.
Changing?
No, that's not going to change. So we're going to keep a free product out there. Our real target to monetize is larger teams, and so we will be building out more and more features to support those larger teams, and those features will go into the business plans. But we'll always have a really free and powerful product for small teams. Generally, if you're a team of say less than 5, or you're a student group or something like that where you might not need some of the business features, then it's totally more than enough.
Very cool. Yeah, it's totally more than enough for me personally. And I know a lot of our listeners, as they are either starting their business or they've just started growing their business, maybe have a VA or two. It's, in my opinion, it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it's perfect for VAs.
Super. So now, did you always want to build an app? Did you always want to create this kind of software and what you're doing, or was there a picture before this that sort of morphed?
Yeah, I mean, this was definitely not something that I dreamt of doing from when I was a child, I don't think. I mean, business has always been pretty exciting to me, or not even so much business, but more like not being bored. So doing something that's like constantly evolving and constantly throwing me new challenges versus, things like, for example, like school that I found quite boring because I found it quite repetitive and pretty limited in what I could kind of do with it. And so I think that's a very attractive part of, running a business is kind of like, I don't remember the last time I was bored, right? Like you just have so much to do and so many things to think about all the time. But this particular business was something that actually came out of my own need when I was running my previous company, which was a marketing company. We were doing online lead generation for consumer finance, so a lot of leads for insurance and mortgages and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I was running a distributed team. I had an office in India. I had a number of virtual assistants in the Philippines, and I had a few people in the US. And basically managing those workflows of deploying different media campaigns and managing deploying of websites and landing pages and testing different offers was something that I wasn't able to get a good grip over. And I basically was searching for products to help me with that, couldn't find it, and essentially just started building it for myself, to scratch my own itch. And that's how ProcessTree started.
Love it. That's so cool. So what did you want to be when you were a little kid and you thought, one day, this is what I want to be when I grow up?
Yeah, I don't think I ever had any kind of persistent, persistent individual thing that I constantly thought I wanted to be the rest of my life. I mean, I was always really excited by, like the idea of just being financially independent. More okay, so. But
hang on, let's talk about like when you were little. Like my brother, he wants to be financially independent. Like when he was like, I don't know, 3 or 4, he wanted to be a garbage man. I'm just like, what? Can you remember anything that was like just a child?
I think like an inventor. I always kind of liked the cartoons and the like the shows and the books, which had kind of like, these kids that had all these gadgets and were doing all these like different things, like solving mysteries or building things. And that was kind of something that I was always interested in, like Inspector Gadget, like, kind of just like those like very kind of gadget and tool oriented type cartoons was something that I really, really liked. And I always used to build things in my room and stuff like that as a kid. But yeah, I don't think I really kind of knew, you know what I mean? Like what that meant.
Of course not. But then look at you now building this amazing platform.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's very cool. So you've been a digital nomad for a while. What inspired you to do that? What inspires you just to kind of roam the world?
Yeah, well, I actually started off just wanting to travel. And so I didn't actually start with the idea of let's be a digital nomad. I basically was working a corporate job I'm from Australia, in Sydney, and I was doing pretty well at that. I kind of had dropped out of school and ended up, I was doing recruitment I was recruiting developers for the investment banks, and I was able to make quite a lot of money at a pretty early age, get myself set up, give myself a little bit of a buffer to be able to basically take some risk. And my first thought was basically, I have some money, I want to just go travel for 6 months. And the reason that I want to do it now, even though like my career is doing pretty well, is because, I thought the experience would be very different going at 24 versus going at 34 or whatever. It wasn't something that you can go back and do again, right? So that was the initial kind of idea. But basically, as I was preparing, so I saved this money, was preparing to go on a 6-month kind of, Australian backpacking trip, as they do. And through that time, I actually came across the book, The 4-Hour Workweek, read that book. And in that book, he talks about essentially how he basically built an internet business and was able to travel the world with it. And that was really a light bulb moment for me. Not so much, actually the actual strategies and tactics I did use a lot as well, although I wouldn't recommend them so much today. But it was more so that it was eye-opening in terms of the possibilities of that. It's possible to kind of make an equivalent amount of income, at least, while traveling and kind of having flexibility of time and location than I was making in my corporate job, wearing a suit, going to work every day. And that was a real interesting concept to me. And so I basically challenged myself that during this trip that I was going to experiment with an internet company. And so I really did just follow basically what he said in that book and find an e-commerce product, built a quick store, and then kind of worked out some fulfillment for it. And then for the next 6 months while I was traveling, I basically was just kind of working on marketing that site. And that basically brought in a little bit of income, enough to the point where I could kind of extend my trip for another 6 months. I then ended up selling the site, the e-commerce store, which gave me another 6 months and gave me a little bit of money to invest in another company, and then it kind of went from there. And so, yeah, it wasn't really that I planned, hey, I'm just going to sacrifice everything and do this, but it was more like I'm going to, section off this piece of time and this amount of money, and give it a shot. And like worst case scenario, it doesn't work. Best case scenario, it does. But kind of like minimizing my risk a little bit that way, and approaching it from that angle, and everything worked out, I guess.
Cool.
It kind of got to the point where, I don't know, once you start, you kind of get sucked in. And then you kind of go down this rabbit hole of just once I challenged myself to do it, then I just really wanted to do it. And it just kind of turned from something that I was doing on the side to something that just consumed me until I made it work.
And was it that it was consuming you because you had like that next goal or financial goal, or was it consuming you because it was just flippin' cool?
I mean, I was thinking this is totally cool. Like I thought that, so I'd always wanted to start a business per se, and I never, and in Australia, it's like, and based on like kind of the upbringing that I came from, it always felt like it was a really monolithic kind of task, right? Where you needed all this money and all these resources and all these connections to kind of do it. Especially in Australia, like salaries are really high and taxes are really high. So your starting capital of kind of doing anything is quite difficult. And I didn't understand these concepts of like, remote working and leveraging automation and all this kind of stuff. So to me, my kind of exposure to business was pretty limited, but something that I'd read and I'd kind of internalized a little bit. I think this comes from Richard Branson actually, was that like business is not about succeeding or succeeding quickly. It's about surviving. And by surviving for long enough, you give yourself opportunities to essentially run tests, or you give yourself time to essentially run tests to find something that works for you, or to find that marketing campaign, to find that customer, to find that supplier that's going to drop your costs or increase your sales, or that partnership or whatever that's going to kind of push you up to the next level. And all you really need to find that is time and effort. But the thing that's against you is money, because your money is running out unless you're making more of it, right? So it's really all about surviving and just continuing to be able to survive until you find that right kind of lever. Whether that's a product or a revenue stream or a partnership or a customer or whatever it is, right? And it's really difficult, if not, I mean, it's not impossible. Definitely lots of people have done it, but it's really difficult to kind of put yourself into a position to be able to easily leverage opportunities or go after opportunities that present themselves if you're working in a full-time job, 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week, and every day you come home tired and stressed. It's very difficult to have the energy and the motivation and the resources to be able to kind of capitalize on opportunities as they come when like so much of your time headspace is consumed in your job, And so one of the things that I had always wanted to try, and this kind of gave me that leverage, was just to kind of start something, not for the purpose of, thinking that was the best idea, because I didn't know. I had so many ideas. I didn't know which one was good, which one was bad or whatever. I had no experience. But more so just to kind of get me in that mindset and free up my headspace to be able to constantly experiment and discover and like focus on that, like meet people who are doing it, learn from them, and just like have the time to do that. And so it wasn't necessarily fun, and it also wasn't necessarily, I'm going to try and make heaps of money with this. It was more about like giving myself the freedom and the headspace to really learn more and give it a real shot. Right on.
So what's been the coolest experience that you've had since becoming an entrepreneur?
A lot. I mean, I've pretty much been traveling the world, running different businesses, meeting different people, living in all sorts of places for the last 6 years. So it's been a pretty big roller coaster. I mean, ProcessTree's definitely been the most exciting and the one that's gotten the most traction and exposure. My marketing company was very behind the scenes, right? We were doing a lot of arbitrage, and it's not really, we didn't really have a brand or anything, it's kind of just like a back end services company that nobody really would know about. So that's been exciting, kind of getting exposure and doing a lot of content marketing. But yeah, I mean, really like going through AngelPad was an amazing experience. AngelPad is a startup accelerator. They're like the second ranked highest after Y Combinator. That was an amazing experience. Closing our seed round, fundraising, that was amazing. The actual fundraising process, not so much. So those are probably kind of big recent highlights, at least from the business perspective. But just in general, from the entrepreneur perspective, I think that I definitely work more. than I did before. So I don't think that's been something that is, I guess, gotten less. But I'm much more interested in what I do, and I feel much more fulfilled because I'm working for myself. And I'm much more interested in the things that I do because they're always changing. It's a lot less monotonous than any kind of job that I've been in. So kind of like not being bored and then having kind of freedom of time, not so much time, but like in a way, yes, because I'm still choosing how I spend my time, has probably been like the most rewarding.
Very cool. And I can really relate because people ask me all the time, like, how are you putting in the kind of hours that you put in? And I'm like, but it's not work for me. Because for me, it's fun. It's like I am motivated by inspiration and I enjoy it. But at the same time, if I don't feel like doing something one day, there's minimal things that really have to get done that day. Like I can take the time and go, okay, I feel like going out to lunch for 4 hours with some friends. And then I'm going to come back and I don't really feel like doing anything. So I'm just going to not. So
yeah, you can rearrange your schedule, most of the time at will, right? If you need to.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about entrepreneurship, to be honest.
And then also, like, if you're working online, you can move, right? So if you have to do work, you can do it on the go, or you can do it somewhere else, which a lot of the time would be really restrictive. So if you need, if you wanted to go and have lunch with your friends across town, and it's going to be a 4-hour journey there and back, but lunch is only an hour or an hour and a half. If you had a job, you wouldn't be able to do that, right? But you can work on the train or whatever in that journey there and back. Maybe do a quick phone call before lunch, then do the lunch, and then come back, and like you're still getting your work done. Yet that kind of flexibility of location allows you to do other things you wouldn't normally be able to do in a normal job, right?
Absolutely. Definitely. There's no train here where I'm at, but I know like if I'm driving, that's oftentimes the time I speak the most with my assistant. So she keeps me company in the car, and I've got my little earbuds in, and we can have a productive conversation while on the run. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So you've mentioned books. You seem to be an avid reader, but what about inspirational mentors that you've known personally? Who's had the biggest impact on you in your life?
I mean, my parents obviously had a lot of impact. They gave me a lot of resources that were really good, books and computers and things like that helped me a lot. I mean, I've had different mentors for different things. So for example, when I was a recruiter, my director was kind of like the guy who hired me, and he was the director and my direct manager. And he was a really strong influence on just sales and just kind of opening my eyes as to like the power of like talking, and the power of just understanding kind of social mechanics and dynamics, and how you can really like switch a situation from like a negative to a positive very quickly if you just like know what to say. So that was pretty enlightening. And then, yeah, I mean, like I've met quite a few pretty young, I guess at the time, and pretty successful internet marketers that were quite inspiring, not so much in terms of just like what they taught me, but more just in reinforcing the ideas that, it can be done, and people are doing it, and people that are younger than me are doing it, people that are less experienced than me than doing it. Like it just made me more confident that I could also do it,
And other than ProcessTree, what's your favorite online resource that helps you have a successful business?
Jeez.
I know life is all ProcessTree now, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, there's a lot, but it's also like, so it changes depending on, what stage of a company that you're at. Now we're 14 people and I have a much bigger burn and bigger customers, blah, blah, blah. So what I'm reading about and what I'm following is different to what I did before. So Smart Passive Income is a really cool blog and podcast, if you haven't listened to it, just for getting started. Some other good initial ones. I mean, if you are interested in tech and startups, there's like How to Start a Startup by Y Combinator. It's a series of lectures that were given at Stanford by people like Peter Thiel and Reid Hoffman, who started LinkedIn, and a bunch of people. That's a really good kind of base base category. And yeah, I'm really kind of startup oriented these days. So like Paul Graham's essays, if you haven't read those are amazing. And then, yeah, depending on what you're trying to do, different things will take in different directions. Like the 4-Hour Work Week's really good to understand systemization. E-Myth is great to understand systemization. And then there are books that are good for fundraising. So yeah, I don't know. I would really kind of first figure out what kind of business that you're trying to build, and then kind of search for resources aligning to that.
Great. And do you have any daily practice or ritual that helps you excel personally?
Yeah, a little bit. Depending on it also kind of depends on where I am and what I'm doing, but generally wake up with coffee, espresso, and then I try and get I try and have a high protein breakfast, and then I try and get a large green smoothie of some sort into me, kind of before lunch or around then, to kind of take care of my vegetable intake for the day. Those are probably the main things. Like in the morning, I'm generally on the phone with my team members in Europe or Asia because of the time zone differences. So that's pretty much how I kind of wake up, and I just kind of am basically on the phone straight away, first thing in the morning, going through daily stand-ups, and kind of eating breakfast and coffee kind of at the same time through those calls. And then that's kind of like basically takes me till lunch every day. So that's pretty much my morning routine, and there isn't really much I can change about it.
All right. And if you absolutely were not necessary at your job for one whole month, or at your business for one whole month, and actually your team said, no, you need a month vacation. So money is no object. You cannot work. What would you do?
Probably go see a bunch of my friends and family back in Australia that I haven't seen in a long time.
Cool.
I've been away for a while.
Yeah. Awesome. So this has been a blast, and I'm wondering if you want to share anything about, everybody knows ProcessTree, but if you want to tell them more about how to reach you, how to connect with you, and how you're here to serve, that'd be awesome.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you can find out ProcessTree. Type ProcessTree into Google or process.st. I'm also on Twitter at VinayP10. And we're also going to be launching a podcast called Business Systems Explored soon, where we take a deep dive into different business systems. So we'll talk about things like content marketing, sales, recruitment, basically find experts in each industry or who basically build products that cater to that industry, and talk about best practices in building those systems. So if you're kind of starting out and you're looking at, how do I set up an accounting system, or how do I set up a recruitment system, or a marketing system, or a sales system, or anything like that, then check it out.
Beautiful. Love it. Vinay, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a blast.
No, it's been an honor, Nicole. Glad to be here.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. I hope you got a lot out of this episode, and I'd love to hear about your thoughts. You can tweet me on Twitter using the hashtag BBRShow. Also, you are welcome to express your love by reviewing the show on iTunes. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, if you do, make sure you head over to bbrshow.com/launch and let me know. As my way of saying thank you, I'm going to give you a Get Seen, Get Heard business building bundle for free. Normally I sell this for $97, but as my way of saying thank you for your support, it's yours for free right now. Be sure to tune in for episode 18, where Paul McManus and I talk insights on partnering and collaborating in business. Until then, have a great day.
And there you have it. If you enjoyed this episode of the Business Building Rockstars Show, be sure to subscribe on iTunes so you don't miss a thing. And visit bbrshow.com for all the show notes and links to resources discussed on today's show. Plus, lots more.